This is not being approved.
Yeah, right. We have a quorum at least.
I'm sorry. You
Yes.
already know the answer to that. I don't know why I asked.
This is not being approved.
Yeah.
It is so funny how connected you are from being what I would consider a pretty small town. Do you know what I mean? Like,
But you know everyone. That's why. Because I know literally everyone in the county.
this reminds me though of my cousin married a guy from Blandford.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So that every single person knows every single person.
That's true. That's true. Okay. Welcome to the December 11th, 2024 North Logan City Council. We will begin today with by excusing Joni and Buzzy. Buzzy's out of town and Joni has other commitments. We will have Emily lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and then I will say a prayer.
Would the audience please stand? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful to be gathered together today as a council and as a city, and ask that thou would please bless us in our efforts today, that we may be blessed with clarity and with an understanding of the issues before us. We ask that thou would please bless us, especially at this Christmas time, that we can have that spirit to guide our decisions and to be with us as we interact with others. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Emily,
Second.
second by Kenny. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we have our meeting minutes from November 20th. And I would assume Scott. Okay, I would entertain a motion on that.
So moved.
Okay, motion by Mark,
Second.
second by Kenny. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and then we will move to recognition of an exemplary staff member. Tonight, we will be recognizing Chris Bolschweiler, Code Enforcement Officer with the North Park Police Department. He was nominated by Chief Goodrich. This week's outstanding employee goes to Code Enforcement Officer Chris Bolschweiler. Throughout the year, North Logan City has had an extraordinary number of citizens requesting that the city invest in a Code Enforcement Officer position. Chris was hired by the North Park Police Agency in August of 2024 and has been serving the city since then. Chris has helped to get the code enforcement program off the ground and has spent countless hours researching proper protocols and enforcement practices. In addition, Chris has prioritized concerns that have come in from citizens and has proactively identified areas that were in violation of current city ordinances. During the summer months, Chris worked with property owners whose weeds were in violation. As cold weather has rolled in, Chris has been able to assist the Public Works Department by helping them keep the streets clear from vehicles that have been parked illegally in violation of the city's overnight parking ordinance. Chris has also taken on several large tasks involving abandoned, rundown, and potentially dangerous properties. In the last 3 months, Chris's efforts have produced more results and progress than in the last several years combined. We want to congratulate Chris on a job well done and thank him for helping make North Logan City a great place to live. I'll just add my 2 cents with that. Chris has taken a job that was very open-ended and has just knocked it out of the park, has exceeded my expectations, and has really done a lot to improve the quality of life here in North Logan. So please join me in giving Chris a hand of applause. Okay, Alan, do you mind following up on issues from our previous meetings and then moving into action items?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Jumping down through a few of these items, we'll go over a lot of the Civic Center items at the end of the meeting. But then just a heads up on city goals and visioning, I'll probably be reaching out to the council. We usually do about a 6-month update at this time where we look at strategic directives, our existing ones, and then we kind of modify them around this time of year. So I'll be reaching out, and just if you have feedback at that time about the goals that we set this last year, we can adjust those at that time. And then the website is being updated right now. It's going through another iteration, and we'll probably have that ready. I'd say in the next month, they might have a draft ready for review. So we'll look at that time. Water, there are several things they're working on, capital improvement plans, endless capital improvement plans that they're going over with the water model and just analyzing each item. And the big one is putting the reservoir up on the hill and the property that we own and how that ties in specifically. There's so many details associated with that, but Jordan and Zach have been working really hard on that to get that lined up with Sunrise Engineering. That's one of the main things that they're working on daily. Streets, obviously they're preparing for snow plowing, and they've done a few plows already this year. Even if it doesn't seem like it, they've been out and about, especially where the snow sticks up on the bench. And then you may have noticed out front, it's been a long time in the work, but they've put that irrigation pipe under the curb line in front of the city offices out on the street. So now people will be able to access the future Civic Center from the road. We'll have an ADA access coming off the street, whereas beforehand it had a very deep gutter that was used for irrigation. So that's been a great addition right there. Jumping down through here, engineering, they're working on the 2850 North project, 12th East project, the Roundabout project. All these are going along really well right now. There's been progress in the last few weeks on each of those. Parks, they're working on several things. They help out with snow plowing, but then they're also wrapping up this year, just getting everything taken care of and then servicing the vehicles. Trails, the Bonneville Shoreline Study between North Logan, Hyde Park, Smithfield, and the county is nearing completion. They have a draft that they're putting together right now, and this is Sunrise Engineering. This is paid for through RAPS, so they're paying for this study. And the great thing about that is once they're done, we'll have a study that we can take before UORG and other organizations at the state and federal level that will help provide grants. They're already reaching out for those grants this next year, hopefully. They'll start with phase 1, which would probably be Hyde Park to Smithfield, and then they'll start helping with a portion in North Logan. So it's lining up exactly as we kind of projected when we asked for these funds from the RAPS committee. Jumping down through recreation, they have a number of programs that we'll go over at the end of this in December. The Silent Santa program, the Sports Sampler, the New Year's at noon, and they're also gearing up for basketball right now. Jumping down through cemetery, we'll probably discuss in the coming weeks the shed that they need. They have more and more burials each week, and they have to haul everything in order to perform those burials by trailer. And it's becoming very cumbersome at that time. At this time, it used to be about one burial every other week, or every 2 or 3 weeks, and now we're about 1 or 2 a week is what we're averaging, and it's becoming it's taking a lot of time for them. So we'll look into that, and there has been money set aside each year for that, and so it's basically allocating those funds and doing this in the most cost-effective manner, and basically preserving that view of the cemetery as well at the same time, as that shed goes in near the bottom of the cemetery. Community development, they have several things coming up. So we'll talk about Village Springs this evening. Sage Hills is the subdivision over here south of the city offices on 6th East that they're working to wrap up the bonding on that. The general plan and city center will have updates from Scott at the end of this meeting on those items. Economic development, there are several things taking place. Rush should get started in the next few weeks with the actual construction of their building. Jumping down through treasurer, she set up a meeting today regarding new billing software. We're looking into that. That might be better for the citizens of the community so they can do online. We already have the ability to do online utility billing, but it's very cumbersome. And this could ease that process and provide multiple methods for people to make their payments through a myriad of ways. And then on top of that, probably enhance communication with the citizenry. We're looking into that and we're seeing if it might work. But hats off to Debbie because she's organized 2 or 3 different sit downs with different companies that provide these resources. Human resources, there's several things taking place, but hats off to human resources for putting together, Karen and the other members of that department, putting together the Christmas party. It was very well done. They do a phenomenal job. And right now they're looking into several things in the coming weeks, maybe potential changes to the employee handbook that help the employees, but we'll bring that before the city council if those changes are recommended. Jumping down through the library, they are revamping their website as well. But they have several programs, and we'll go over those at the end of this meeting. But they have the Santa Story Time this week, the Robotics Club. I think the Santa Story Time is actually next week. The movie night, adult craft. These are all things that they're taking place. They send out emails about those. If people aren't receiving those, just sign up on the listserv for those services. It's incredible all the things that they're doing. Police, again, we'll have a report from Chief at the end of this meeting regarding Shop with a Cop, which is a huge success. Thanks to the police for coordinating that, the council members who helped out with that, and the mayor. But I'll have the chief just go over that at the end of this meeting. And again, over code enforcement, I don't think that was exaggerated to say that the progress that Chris has made in the last few weeks and last 6 months-ish is 10 times the progress that I made and the other departments made in the previous 10 years. And that's not an exaggeration. That is incredible, all the things that he's done. And we're seeing movement on things that really we saw no movement on for 10, actually 20 years with certain homes. And so hats off to him for all the things that he's been doing. And then fire department will have another report from Chief at the end of this meeting regarding a few things that they've been working on. Sorry, I jumped over several things. If there's any questions about any particular department or anything else I skipped over.
Any questions from the council?
The only one I have is for the treasurer. You had mentioned that they're looking to a new system. I got asked by a resident if they would be willing to consider like a Cash App sort of payment system that they could use, like a Zelle or something like that to pay their utilities.
I can look into that.
I told them I had no idea, but since you mentioned it, it kind of brought it up for me.
I'll write it down and I'll bring it up with her and see if that is an option. This certain software that we're looking at does provide a myriad of ways. I don't know if I saw that. There's a difficulty though with cities. I don't personally use Venmo, but Venmo is a huge tool now. It's come on the last 2 or 3 years and it's become more of it used to be a fad and now it really is a tool for several things. The state still won't allow cities to use Venmo.
Makes sense.
But there's certain things in place like that where there's restrictions as to what we can take as payment method, and most of these companies just follow those restrictions. But I'll look into it regardless.
No, I told them I didn't think it was possible, but that, I mean, just the fact they're even mentioning it, I just wondered if it was any
Yeah,
possibility.
might as well look into it.
Okay. Okay, thank you. We will move on to our action items then. The first is a public hearing to receive input from the public with respect to the issuance of revenue bonds and the potential economic impact that the project for which the bonds pay all or part of the cost will have on the private sector pursuant to section 11-14-318 of the Utah Code annotated 1953 as amended. So, I mean, Alan, do you want to give the background on this? This is another step in our loan with the DEQ. We will turn it over to Alex, but this is just another step that we have to do to fund the project that's the North Logan sewer line extension. So, Alex, did I miss anything? Anything you want to say? Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. Alex Buxton with Zions Bank Public Finance. Always great to come up and meet with North Logan. I think that was a great summary, Mayor. This is a loan that had been approved quite a while ago, a couple of years ago, actually, through DEQ. $3.5 million, 2%, 30 years. Amazing interest rate for a 30-year loan. And we had thought that we had kind of taken care of this when we did the CIB bonds for this building, and didn't do it all in the same time frame. So now we're getting closer to wanting to close on the bonds. I know Alan and his staff has been working hard with the Board of Water Quality and getting everything put together so that we can close in 2025. So it is a kind of a formality. I know you adopted a resolution a couple of weeks ago, or maybe in November, that Brandon Johnson came up to that meeting, and this is the follow-up to that, the required public hearing. So we, again, anticipate closing the bonds in 2025, just trying to get all the boxes checked for the state before we can do that.
Okay. All right, then let's open this up to the public hearing. And then council, we can have any discussion. So I'll read those rules. Before you begin, please state your name for the record. Speak into the microphone so your comments can be recorded. Limit your statements to 3 minutes. If you're speaking on behalf of others, oh, too bad. You still get the same amount. I have the old rules here. Phrase your opinions in the form of statements, not questions. A public hearing is your opportunity to express your opinions to the city council. Please address your comments to the council, not to the public. In the future, note that if you have questions or need to discuss an issue, you may meet with the city council members, appropriate city staff members before the public hearing where dialogue can take place. You may provide a written statement as your input for the hearing. You may read your entire statement or summarize it. The 3-minute limit still applies. You can provide a copy of your written statement to the city recorder. He will make copies for the city council and the written statement will become a part of the public record. However, the submitted statement will not be included in the minutes. So with that, we'll open up the public hearing on this matter. Seeing no comments, I will close the public hearing. Any discussion from the council on this? Okay, then I would entertain a motion.
Do we need to make a motion to move it forward, or is it just a public hearing? On a prior resolution?
I think you have to, you don't need to, no motion.
No motion.
I don't think,
Good catch.
as I read it,
Okay, we're just getting the input tonight. Okay, then thank you, Alex, and thank you, council, for pointing that out. All right, then let's move on to consideration of a resubmittal of a proposed updated city center development plan for the Village Springs subdivision, a 51-lot, single-family development on parcel ID 04-060-0027, located at approximately 400 East and 2400 North. I'll, I guess, frame this a little bit. We obviously most recently had a hearing on this issue. The developer requested a meeting with a workshop with a couple of city council members, a couple of planning commissioners, and staff to discuss what changes need to be made to bring this into compliance. That's something that is not abnormal. It's not nefarious. It's something that we try to do so that we're more efficient, so that applicants aren't guessing what they have to do to receive approval from the council. So I was in that meeting along with Emily and Mark. Okay. And so they have submitted a new application with some changes that they've kind of withdrawn the request for exceptions to that zoning. What we will not be discussing tonight is some of the issues that were previously discussed, whether or not there is a road. That is an issue that is just not in play right now. There has to be a road. It has to be at that location, given the water line. Anyway, so we will be discussing that tonight. Scott, tell me what I've missed. Maybe you can give us the specifics of the application as well.
Yeah, just a couple of high-level items for consideration. The council, this is administrative in nature, meaning we're just making sure that this complies with code. And we are bound to approve a project if it demonstrates compliance. So when this came to the council at their last meeting, the two items that were open for consideration was a request to have some private streets in the development and a request for an exemption from the number of homes that were required to be 2-story. Those were items that had some discretion. The council reviewed those, had some concerns about limiting some of the streets to being entirely private and also having some of the homes be less than 2 stories. The code for this zone, it's SF6, requires 2 stories throughout the entirety of the development. And that was one of the items that the council had said, hey, let's try to not grant exemptions. Let's try to just make this comply. So in rediscussing those two items with the developer indicated that they would be okay to go and comply with the 2 stories throughout. And then we discussed the private roads and thought about a way maybe we could find a win-win mutually beneficial scenario where the 2360 to 2400 North connection, that connection has to remain public. For the water line that needs to traverse through the development, but also for the necessary access, egress, and ingress for fire code. So that has not changed. That connection point will remain public. But the private streets that would be providing frontage to the majority of these single-family homes, the middle ground that we found was that if we were to leave those as private, but then require that there be a pedestrian access easement on those sidewalks where the public could traverse on those private streets, then we kind of satisfy both desires of the city and the developer, where we have that pedestrian connectivity in and through the development, but the developer is able to keep that private street on those roads that don't provide through access. So those are the two big points of consideration. There was some discussion at the last meeting about a pedestrian pathway on the southeast corner that could potentially provide a connection point between this development and the existing development to the east, that North Logan Retirement Subdivision. That was more of an idea if there was a desire for those two communities to provide a pedestrian access. Members of that development to the east did not love that idea, and so there's not a requirement for it to be connected. It was more of a suggestion if they would like to work together. So that's being removed from the proposal. Those are the big key items. There's a couple of extra conditions in the staff report to make those adjustments a reality. Happy to go through those if you would like more details. But that's the crux of what is being adjusted and why this is back before the council for reconsideration.
Okay. Does the developer want to speak to this? Okay. Okay, council discussion on this? And just if I can just say, really helpful to have both Emily and Mark there. Emily, an important part for her was preservation of that access on that private portion. And the developers were really great to work with on that. They were really amenable to all of our concerns.
I
So,
appreciated that.
and then,
Those are addressed by giving a public access.
Public easement, yeah.
easement.
because we care.
And those are addressed by including a public access along that private road out to the southwest
Yeah.
corner, right?
I guess my biggest concern is, and I totally see why the neighborhood to the east doesn't want that. I 100% respect that. You guys don't want that. I do know that there are enough people who would like an access point, and if you set the expectation that the public is going to be allowed to walk on the sidewalks, people will adjust, and so that was a big concern. I mean, I will say this, I'm not fond of allowing variances, and this private road variance is about the most that I would allow. So that's why I'm really gonna hold steady on the 2-story. We do have one other property that has FF6. And whenever we open the door to allowing a variance for one person, we're telling everybody else they can have it. And I mean, I don't want to say anything negative about any developer that I do not personally know, but I just don't always trust that the next person through the door is going to be as good as some of the ones we've had previously. And so it just always concerns me whenever we do variances. So if they're amenable to this, actually, I do have a question for the developer. Are we still planning 55 plus? Okay, 55 plus with 100% 2-story.
And I think that's in the application.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's
sorry,
55. Yeah, I looked for that.
And it will
saw
be in the CCNRs.
Okay, I thought that was, but okay, that's where it is. The staff recommendations there is
Yeah.
number 2. Okay. When
I'm-
we are doing this, Scott, how do we need to, is there something special we need to phrase it, or can we use the statement,
In adopting
the resolution, if we said something like accepting the facts findings of the staff report?
And the conditions, unless you
Oh,
want to
sorry,
add
conditions.
anything or detract anything. So if you're okay with what's in the staff report, you
I
just say
am. Are you
facts,
okay?
findings,
I
conditions.
just had some questions, Scott, on the staff report.
Mhm.
First of all, the gap parcel. So this is separate from the public right of way there north of this parcel, right? The gap parcel's in addition to the public right of way along where 2400 North would go through.
No, so there's a public right of way on the very far
West.
north where it abuts Cinnamon Ridge.
Yep,
So
I
that's
see that.
that's an existing 33-foot right of way. The gap parcel is that sliver immediately to the south. And
Right.
when we were looking at, so our attorney was looking at this as well, and he said, hey, I'm having a hard time tracing back the title ownership on this, and we might want to do a little bit more title history search. It's presumed to be public right-of-way, but we want to just be certain. If it's not public right-of-way, then we need to identify who owns the parcel, and that would need to be worked out by the developer to acquire it. If it is public right-of-way, then there is a very specific process to vacate that public right-of-way, and it can be done through the platting process, which would precede this process that we're in now. But there's a specific requirement in state code that we have to follow for that vacation. So we just need to do a little bit more homework on what that gap parcel is to identify how to incorporate it into the development.
Okay. I guess I'm in the off chance that it's not already public right of way, and I know your staff report said ownership is in question right now. Does that put the developer in a difficult situation if it's owned by someone else who does not want to sell?
Potentially, if they're not amenable. I mean, it very well may be the previous owner who they purchased the majority of the land from. It could be public right-of-way, which would be the easiest for us to just incorporate and vacate through the subdivision process. But there's some old history we need to dig up here and figure that out. And for that reason, it is a condition in the staff report, and there's some language in there to protect the city from what may or may not be the case once we identify ownership.
Okay. My other question was related to Cinnamon Ridge there on the north. So this development will affect some of those residents there who it looks like have kind of their sheds and things have encroached upon that public right of way. But from the staff report, it sounded like we're putting the onus on the developer to do the notification to these residents. And I guess I'm wondering, what involvement does the city have to arbitrate that at all?
Well, so we've asked the developer to do the lion's share of the work of notifying and knocking on the door and identifying where exactly that line is, so those owners can identify how far they have encroached. There's a chance that some folks just might not want to work well with the developer, and in that case, then code enforcement would get involved to say, hey, you've encroached on city property, we need to work with you to remove the items that have been on city property for several years. The first step is to identify exactly where that right-of-way line is. So there's some survey work that needs to be done. And once we know exactly where the line is, we'll know just how much work needs to happen. But the developer will be the ones who will kind of spearhead that effort. And the city may need to get involved with some code enforcement if needed.
Would this be a great opportunity to maybe code enforce the rest of that public easement then as well? I mean, just because I feel bad for the people who think that that's their property, because I would also be pretty frustrated, but it's not, and it never was.
Correct.
Do we have any teeth for the management company of Cinnamon Ridge to kind of be like, you can't do this?
I mean, it's an open code violation. It just hasn't been enforced. So
Okay.
now that we've identified the issue, we can work with the property management as well as those individual owners to identify, what is in the way and what needs to move. So,
But are
yeah.
you talking about the ones unaffected by the road?
Yeah, well, I mean, just in general though, are we giving, I was under the impression that we were giving all of the public easement to them, and are we not, sorry, maybe I'm misinterpreting how this has been.
Can you go to the plat map or the drawing so we can see
Yeah.
how that
Oh,
changes?
there you go.
What will happen if we don't encroach anymore on that other public easement? I mean, we still have it, correct?
Yeah, so you can kind of see where the road meanders to the northeast.
Can you zoom in? Is that close enough to the microphone? Man.
Yeah. So in the far easternmost portion, those homes are going to be the most impacted because the road
Mhm.
really does use that right of way for that connection. As you get further to the west, those folks will not have a road specifically in their backyard, but it is still public right of way, and it may still be beneficial to the city in the future. So what we'll look into doing is incorporating that area into the boundary, but we'll likely keep it as public right of way just in our back pocket in the event we ever need it. If we decide we don't need it, then we can vacate it. But I anticipate that, in the future, who knows how far off in the distance, when Cinnamon Ridge redevelops into something life, that maybe that right of way will be beneficial, and we'll be glad to have kept. Does that make
I mean,
sense?
I just think now is a great opportunity for us to help set expectations pretty appropriately for the people of Cinnamon Ridge. Because again, I totally understood their point when they're coming up and being like, hey, they're encroaching on my property. I mean, again, I'd be frustrated.
Yeah, definitely an education opportunity to identify the line versus the full distance east and west and say, hey, guys, this is where that line is, just so you're aware.
And-
Yeah, but I wouldn't extend it to the point where we're like where we're saying enforcing that easement preemptively. That seems punitive to me. And I like how we have it where the developer is in charge of that. We can obviously back you up on that, but yeah, it's not a battle I want to take on.
Yeah, I mean, we could allow those folks to continue to use that space for some elbow room. It is public right of way, and my understanding is that there's not a concern about adverse possession where when you occupy it for a certain amount of time, they grow a right to continue to occupy it. My understanding is that that's not a concern. So it's not like a prescriptive right that is growing. But yeah, I mean, we could say, hey, we want to clear everything out all at once, or we could just say, hey, we're just going to move what is immediately in the way where the road's going to connect.
And it sounds like for today, we're voting on the latter, right? Not clearing everything, but just the affected.
That's my understanding. And I think we can discuss other things later for me
Okay.
too.
So I apologize for my ignorance. I'm not a developer, so I'll just ask the question. If I were a developer and I were charged with kind of negotiating this, with the residents over there, the vacating them from that public right of way, it would feel awkward to me without having someone from the city with authority there to help with that. But is this typical of developments like this? Okay.
So they would be required to go out and initiate those conversations, negotiations. They're coming into the city to do a development. It's just if they have questions and if the city needs to back it up with a letter or whatever is needed at that point, we would come at that point with a letter to state this is the city's right of way, like Scott mentioned. Then the code enforcement needs to get involved just to enforce exactly where that's at.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay.
I would just say that I have said that given the uniqueness of this property, if I were voting on whether it were single or two-story, I would be fine with a single story. But the developer's chosen not to seek that anymore. So that's not on the table.
As possibly like a rezone to a zone.
Not as a rezone, but in that
allow it.
request to modify the ordinance in this as part of a development agreement and a legislative action. I agree with Emily, you don't want to create expectation, but I think you can make findings given the property around it that the intent to create a step down doesn't pertain to this property. And so I can see a valid legislative reason to do it, but that's not before us. And so it's not an
And nor
issue.
is it something that they're seeking
Yeah,
today.
so that's why it's not relevant to anymore.
I do have one more quick question, sorry. The staff report talks about a concern with unmet requirement for architectural variation. And I know that is one of the conditions in the approval for this. Do we want to view the different plans for the two-story buildings before we approve, or what are the thoughts there, Scott, with the architectural variation?
That's certainly something you could request. If you want to see those before you make the approval, you could do that. We could continue this to a future agenda and wait for them to submit those items for your review. The condition as it's drafted in the staff report indicates that with them going to a 100% two-story development, we want to make sure there's enough floor plans, facades, material variation so that we don't get the same home on the same block. We don't want to see the same home anywhere on a single block face. And so what they had submitted to us was an example of a couple different floor plans that could meet the requirements of the City Center for Architecture and Materials. We just want to make sure they do in fact have enough in their quiver so when they go to develop that we're not going to get any repetition. So that is a condition. It's listed in the staff report. And they would need to do that with staff unless the council wants to request that and see that themselves.
Why would we not just see that happen in the construction drawings as we move farther down the road? And right now we're just dealing with the boundary issues and not.
Yeah.
Well, and it says in requirement, I think there's a dual protection there, right? It's a condition of the approval and it's just, you have to comply with city code, which I think is probably exists as a requirement with or without this condition.
Yeah.
What-
Scott, you might need to forgive me, I'm pretty naive, but isn't there one more meeting that they need to come to for approval, and that includes that portion of approval, meaning the architectural renderings, the materials, the variation?
No,
think-
so that is this phase. So that in the city center comes very first, and then we get into the plating, which is more technical, and then they go into building permits. What I would like to see, and as part of this condition, is that they provide that before we get into the building permits. So when they have individual lots for sale and individual owners are picking out their preferences for the architecture or the floor plan, we're not having to worry about someone selecting very similar preferences on a particular block face. And so my preference would be that they provide to staff that variation before we get too far into the plating. So when they go to sell the lots, they can convey to the potential buyers that there's certain restrictions as to what can be chosen on a block face, or that certain lots are restricted to a particular floor plan. So you don't have that concern too far down. I'd
Scott,
like
could
to
we
see-
make that explicit then in this motion?
Absolutely.
I think that covers maybe
Okay,
what
sure.
your concern is, Kenny, is
Yeah, I
like,
agree.
is maybe just being more specific about the timing.
Yeah, timing would be great. If you want to say before they submit for their final plat, I think that would be beneficial.
Okay. Do one of you three want to take a stab at that motion?
I'm gonna try it unless you boys want to, come on.
Got it.
It's all yours.
All right, here we go. I would motion for us to approve the resubmittal of a proposed updated city center development plan for the Village Springs subdivision on parcel ID 04-060-0027, located at approximately 400 East and 2400 North. As presented, along with the facts, findings, and conditions made in the staff report, with an addition of, would you put it at the very end where you say the above listed conditions of approval? Let's see,
I think if you just.
architectural variations need to be submitted before the final plats submittal?
Yeah, I would just say condition number 8 would be expounded to include a timeline not to exceed the final plat
Okay,
phase.
I think you can just say yes.
yes, all the things that he said, I already said them. Me and
Okay.
Marie are reading our minds.
Okay, so we have that motion. Do we have discussion on that motion?
I'd second it.
Oh,
do
great.
that,
Thanks,
so.
Mark. Okay, so all in favor?
I,
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes.
approximately 400 East, 2400 North is what it states here. It's an approximation because it isn't exact. You
Bet
would
you're-
say,
it's
you
closer
would
to
want us to
3.
say between 300 and 400 East. Is that better for you?
Actually, between 300.
It's being 3 and.
Sorry, 200 and 300 East. Thank you. Sorry, 400 East. I got my north and east mixed up again. Apologies.
It says.
Are we good
It does.
as
You-
far as
you read it right.
Marie goes?
You read it
Okay,
I was reading,
It is.
I was reading what was listed
Blaming
here,
Scott.
but you are correct. It is between 200 and 300 East.
okay. Thank you. And Emily, thanks for taking on that motion. All right, let's move on to consider approval of a bid to construct a chlorine contact chamber west of the North Logan City Water Treatment Plant. Thanks everyone for coming tonight. This, I mean, I can give you the quick and dirty summary that this is a contact chamber that is required by the state of Utah.
Mhm.
And so we're doing it. Jordan, anything else?
Yeah, it's just an addition to our water treatment plant. It helps. It's a requirement for our chlorine contact, just like it sounds. And we had Hazen Engineering out of Salt Lake. We've met with a lot of engineers to come up with a plan for this. They came up with the best plan that has been approved by the Division of Drinking Water. And so we sent it out to bid back in November, and we received the bids back. And this is the tabulation of the bid. There's a bunch of information in here. Hazen went through and broke out each bid. Zach Root gave a letter of recommendation, as well as Hazen Engineering, that we go with DWA Construction.
Jordan, have we worked with them in the past?
We have. Yep.
Okay,
They're a local company just down here on Main Street. They've done a lot of work with us.
that was my only question.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
I guess had a follow-up question too. I mean, that is a tough pill to swallow for, what we think is not necessary technically, right? To meet
It's very
requirements.
necessary.
It isn't. Well, I mean, the state's telling us it's
Yeah.
necessary, but
It is.
Not exactly
Okay.
necessary from a
From like a-
100-year history, but necessary from the new EPA and state
Okay,
requirements.
all right.
We
Yeah,
gotta do it.
that hurts.
We're gonna send Kenny in to lobby for a change.
That's right.
Okay,
Well, I'm ready to make a motion.
Sounds
unless
good.
Mark, you ready to take this one
I'm
on?
ready to second it.
Perfect. I would propose that we approve a bid to construct a chlorine contact chamber west of the North Logan City Water Treatment Plant. Do I have to say who we're picking or just accept the bid that you are recommending? Based on the recommendations of city staff?
sounds good.
I
Okay.
guess would make me feel
I'll
better.
second that.
Motion by Emily, second by Mark. Any discussion on this? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Emily is adding an audible aye to that.
Sorry.
Having made the
internally-
motion, it would be
Internally
shocking.
said it aye.
Okay, let's talk about council dates for January. Sorry, for the
2025?
year,
For the year.
but
there's a
let's
lot.
think about January
Including
1st.
January.
So-
Ellen, you want to take it through?
I can go through this pretty quickly. Thanks to Scott for putting this together as well, because this pertains to city council and planning commission dates. Again, these are tentative dates. They can be changed at any time, but it's good to always do a year planning. When in talking with Scott, it's kind of unique that we're the only city or county that does this. It is a state code requirement, but I think we're the only one that does this. But it's good to lay out kind of what dates we're anticipating for meetings so that city council members can plan accordingly and the public. For that matter. But looking through here, there's only a few months that are off from the regular schedule. That would be January. That's due to dates. How they lined up this year, it was really odd trying to coordinate those and holidays. But then April is the only other really odd month because that's the month that we usually have the Utah League of Cities and Towns conference. And that conflicts with that and also a planning conference, which some of the planners can attend as well. And so we have to straddle those. The only other one is July, where you have 2 dates with holidays right in the month. So it just makes sense to have one meeting. However, this can be changed if this doesn't work with the council's schedules. This is a tentative date. It can be changed tonight, or it can be changed anytime throughout the year.
Okay,
I actually, all the changes you made deconflicted whatever conflicts I would have had with the first and third. So it worked out really well for me as far as what I know so far.
that's how we roll. We just listen to Kenny's.
And I'm really lame and they always worked. So I was going to be here. Mark, do these dates work better for you?
No, those are the dates that create, well, the 16th, actually the 16th works.
15.
Hold on.
15th of January?
The 15th is bad on January for me. But I think it was better for Buzzy. And so it is.
Well, and I, that's the only date I can do as
Okay.
well.
I wish you well.
And then the March 5th one continue, or sorry, March 5th is another conflict that you have.
Yes,
Okay,
but I'm fine on the 19th, so.
okay.
Okay.
Emily, you're good. Buzzy, I didn't hear back from him about the months where we have, variance from the first and third, but
I think he just said, he didn't give specific examples, but he said those would probably be hard for him to make.
yeah. So that, I don't know if January is included in that, but,
Well, that would be the first and the third anyway, though. The 15th's the third.
oh, true.
So I think he'd be okay there. And I wouldn't be surprised if he was already anticipating the April one because that's such a common one for
Yeah.
us to do.
And July as
Yeah,
well,
I was
like
gonna
with
say
the
those
4th of
might be-
July.
He might be okay.
And we may, I mean, this is not set in stone. I think it's our best approximation of those later months, but I think this is the best we can do. Mark, appreciate
good.
you like giving us the heads up though, because I think that's helpful. So, okay, do we need to actually,
Yeah.
I guess make a resolution?
Resolution.
Okay. I would like Mark to do this.
You want me to, I would make a motion approving the tentative dates and times of city council and planning commission meetings for the calendar year 2025 as presented.
Okay, motion by Mark,
Second,
second by Emily. All in favor?
I
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. We'll move on to the work session items. The first is a mayor's message newsletter schedule.
Right, this is the one that can be shifted around. significantly. Meaning what I did is I just took every single one and shifted it down 1 month on the list, which already created a conflict because Emily has already done January, as I understand.
You're welcome.
Uh,
And yes, it is
so-
submitted, so she doesn't have to ask me about it.
So what we
that
need to
was on
do
this
is just
list of to-do,
change
so that's-
December, if that's possible, on this list, unless something else conflicts. So we just need to change one other month so Emily doesn't have 3 times that she has to do.
You know what?
So-
Everyone wants to hear from me more. Just kidding.
I think you could
Mark,
you could take a few of mine too if you want.
Mark, I'm welcome to hand over December to
I
you.
only have one. I'll take December. A peace on earth kind of a thing going.
Oh, wow.
Easy. That's an easy one.
It is. Okay, so does that is that pretty even as far as council members, 1, 2?
The only one that has
Kenny has
one now
one.
is still Kenny. He's just not very good at
Yeah,
writing.
I can pick up whatever, whatever you don't want, Mayor.
I'm gonna keep that in my back
Fuzzy.
pocket,
Mayor
Kenny.
has 4.
When she's getting dry.
I
around the-
usually have
around
6,
September.
so I'll take it.
Okay.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I'm taking December. I already
just-
have June.
We'll share this document right here and we'll just put it in the folder.
Okay, that's perfect. If anyone gets in a bind with these, we can always chat about it. Okay. Perfect. Thank you for putting that together. All right, now fiscal year 2026 department head budget presentation schedule.
Yes. Sorry, let me pull that up. So what this does is this follows that previous schedule of the meetings. So that's why it's good to look at what meetings are coming up on what dates. And there's been discussion over the years. There's no perfect way to go about this. There's pluses and minuses by having such a long drawn out method where we have department heads come in and go over each proposed schedule. However, it does give a lot of time to plan. It's really tough for departments that have to go in February when you're planning out starting July 1st of that year, going to June 30th of the following year. It's really tough to plan. It's very tough to plan for several departments that have major projects like streets or parks, if they have a major construction project, or water or sewer, even more difficult. And then facilities ties to all the different departments, so we have to wait until most of the other departments are done before we even approve that budget. But does anyone see any conflicts? I've asked the department heads if they have any conflicts. Sometimes there is something that comes up where we just have to shift a department head a meeting, but I tried to space them out evenly, and it's kind of coincides with previous years and how they presented their budgets. But unless there's any other questions or any other formats, different council members have asked for different things over the years, so there's no right or wrong way to go about this. But it's just to give a heads up to you and ask you if you see any conflicts. The ones at the end are the ones where Scott always has to correct me, Scott Bennett, if I don't put these ones that actually have code associated with them. Again, how we approved a schedule tonight. We're one of the only cities that does that. We're also one of the only cities in the state that approve a tentative budget on the first meeting in May. But that was a catch by a previous mayor that said this is in state code. We might as well follow it. And so we do that each year. We adopt a tentative budget in the first meeting in May. And then Scott astutely pointed out that when the original meeting was sent out, it had our second approval in June too late. It has to be approved before the 22nd of June. And so that's why those meetings line up the way they do.
Okay.
And
And I would just say that on the meetings that you can't make it, I guess, Mark, Kenny, do you have none that you're missing either?
Right now, but I'm
currently?
sure I will have conflicts come up at some point. in
Okay,
time.
I would just say if you're unable to attend those budgetary hearings, that's, let's keep an open dialogue
Okay.
as far as, if you guys have specific questions that you'd like us to ask in your behalf, or at a minimum, listening to those presentations so that you have a sense of where those are. I just don't want to get into, June and be asking some of those questions, because I think that's puts our department heads behind the 8 ball a little bit. I think this looks good. I can't imagine having a super strong opinion on the order of presentations, but any input from you guys? I guess, Mark, you may have some if you're looking at the
Are there
March
some
5th
you
one.
don't
Well,
definitely don't want to
the
miss?
March 19th one, well, the March 5th, and so I'd probably, by the 28th, I think I'd be okay if I saw it by the 28th.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, then let's plan on this. Again, I think we can have an open dialogue on this. Okay, let's move on to updates regarding the North Logan City General Plan and City Center Master Plan.
There's
Scott?
just there's a file in there with upcoming dates. I'll open that one up. Okay, so the next item that's coming up, there's a steering committee meeting for the city center. There's a couple of individuals on the planning commission council that serve in that capacity. And so that's our next milestone where we will be reviewing a mostly finalized city center master plan. We've been waiting on this element before we send out the general plan to the public because we wanted to send it out as a complete package for an open public comment period. So we're letting our city center master plan consultant team catch up a little bit to the general plan, which on the 19th will be a good indication as to whether or not we're ready to send it out to the public. My hope is that we get it sent out shortly thereafter. I am a little bit concerned about the holiday. I don't want to advertise something and have it get swept under the busy season. So we'll see how that works out from a timing perspective. But I would like to have that final draft of the general plan out to the public for 2, 3, 4 weeks, somewhere in there, just so people have plenty of time to review it and read through. It's a substantial document. So that's kind of the next upcoming milestones and what to look forward to in those two projects. Do you guys have any questions?
Questions from the council? Okay, thanks. We're starting to see the end.
Yeah.
It's great. All right. Updates about our water capital improvement projects. Is that you, Jordan?
Now it's on. So just to kind of bring you back up to date where we're at, Alan mentioned it a little bit earlier, but we're still working with the Division of Drinking Water for the funding. That's all underway. We're just waiting to pull that. The water tank, it will be going out to bid in January. And then with the approval of the contact chamber, that will begin construction probably in February. And then, yeah, we'll probably see a lot of stuff on wells coming up in the next month or two. So we've been super busy. Sunrise Engineering has been doing a crazy job on getting everything lined up. So we're well underway. We'll probably see bids in January, maybe early February for the tank. So be prepared for that.
Would their estimated, I mean, have you put the request for bids out?
No, it will go, so for the tank itself, they'll go out the beginning of the year.
And do they have an idea of like maybe a timeline with that at all? Even
So-
if it, yeah.
So they anticipated that tank will be online by probably fall to winter
Okay.
in a year. It's about a 9-month construction window for that tank. So
It'll be nice to get that started because that was maybe one of the first things I encountered as
Yeah.
mayor. So it'll
it's
be
been a
nice
long
to.
time coming.
Water audit made
And
it
it's gonna
so
be
clear how
huge, so
desperately we need it.
It'll be a
So-
big tank.
Okay. Updates on the Civic Center.
Sorry, I can just go over a few of those updates. Really, it's, if you look over at the building, you can see some of the updates. So in the knuckle or that corner area right now, they've been working really hard in that. And they've got all the Fox blocks in, the walls poured, the trusses across the roof or ceiling, and then the decking on top of that has all been installed. What they'll do is they'll move on and they'll do the same thing over here with the community center portion. Then once that's done, they'll pour the roof for both of those areas. In addition to that, though, the things that we're working on now are just final details for install of the interior and also fundraising, naming of rooms, things of that nature that are associated with fundraising.
What's our current estimated time of closing down the library to kind of transfer, to do any of that?
We were going to ask that Thursday for an
Okay.
update from them. That's a really good question because we all have different dates in mind because we've all been given different dates. But sometime during the summer, early fall, they'll have to start transferring over those books and they'll start gutting and working on the library.
But the idea is that they move into the community center so
That-
that
I-
there's not a
As a
huge
temporary
disruption.
home.
They're trying to do it and not have services disrupted as much as possible, which I absolutely appreciate. I just wondered kind of if you had an estimated time so the library could plan. That's all.
At the next meeting, I'll have that exact date for you.
So
or the
tomorrow.
anticipated date. Yeah.
Okay. I expect a text. Just kidding.
Okay.
You got it. Okay. And then let's get reports from city officers. So let's go with Chief Thompson.
The stash is back, chief.
He was just-
That's right.
It's on.
I think it's on.
Questions on this month's report? I know the way to set that out, we do have on page 2 the kind of the nature codes.
It's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, and so what we can do, we'll kind of look at the address listing, you know, just to protect privacy, obviously. We'll look at address and see if there's a correlation, particularly with falls and sick persons, if we can do to assist, like what happened in Springs, Iron Valley Lodge, whatever those trends are, to try to, get in. But, those are pretty difficult. Couple things reports since I didn't get to see you last month. I apologize for the conference out of town, but we did have a pretty significant collision and a crash on Oklahoma South on the fire. Luckily, our people were okay, but it was a pretty serious crash. Car was about 60 miles an hour. It's it's tough, but we do have an engine that's out of service for a little bit. And then I think so. Kind of looking at the schedule, what I kind of like to do is maybe just bring up the fact that it looks like there'll be one meeting, maybe two, prior to talking about some budgetary things for the fire department. And I really think there's some things that we need to probably address. Number one, the apparatus that North Ocean City owns, the frontline engine is approaching 13 years old. Well, it's 2 years away from the FDA recommendation status. Current build time for 32 months for a new apparatus. So there's just a few things that I want to get with Alan and kind of start looking at for moving forward next year. The next time I see it, Christmas is going to be done very well in a few years. So we'll try to get as much information out. There are some things that I noticed the last couple of months. I want to make sure are on your list to watch. So, but otherwise, things are good. The crews in North Logan are good. Super grateful for the opportunity to come to this party. Sorry I couldn't make that one. I was had, my mom broke her leg and her solid. My dad caretaker, so we had some family. Sorry. Super grateful. Just want to wish you, Merry Christmas. We'll get to work here right after the holiday.
Okay. We'll do that later. It's fine. Okay, thanks, Chief. I like to see it, Chief Goodrich.
I wanted to give a return and report on the shopping document. It's huge. City council there were involved in that. It was fantastic. So this is the first year that we've had the most kids, 50 kids this year. It's the highest amount we've had. It's also the highest dollar amount that people provided in donations and businesses. So each child involved had 250 spent. This is also the first year that we had a number of volunteers. We had members of city councils that were there helping. We had businesses that were there from Waukegan County. We were sent some people over. South Walmart sent people over to help with that. We had youth councils that were there. Jordan's son, he was part of that. It was an incredible showing from the community. Incredible. In addition to that, I wanted to kind of give some updates on our stats that we had this last week. It was a busy week for us. That was our big event. We had all of our department there for that. We still had 115 calls and 113 traffic stops in addition to that event. So as we're busy, so out and out on the things, and we're Those are the two big things.
Okay, thanks, Chief. And we had a fun bingo time yesterday.
Yes, we
Not a lucky one for me, but it was fun. Thank you. Okay, Jordan, Scott.
Right. One item to kind of keep on our radar, May of 25, the 7th, 8th, and 9th is the spring conference for APA Utah. That seems really far out, but what's interesting about it is it will be held here in Logan. And with it being so close to home, the APA, they try to use local examples of planning and good practice, local stories for conference sessions and mobile tours, those types of things. So the planning phases of that conference are ongoing and are just ramping up. One of the things that our city center master plan consultant and our general plan consultant would like to team up and show off our new planning efforts with a session on that topic. But it's also an opportunity for the city to perhaps show off some other things that we're good at. Recreation, some of our water tiered rates might be an interesting session. So if there's anybody has an interest in participating in that aspect, maybe other elements of the city, it's something we need to start thinking about and putting on our radar for either attendance or participation. So let me know if you have any thoughts, if there's anything you want to do.
I want to see the tiered water rates, but I specifically would like to see Zach present it. Jordan?
Sign them up. So yeah,
Get him out of the prison of his
Yeah.
tiny office.
just wanted to throw that out there. But just FYI, that's early May, and it'll be an interesting time for us.
Okay, hold our feet to the fire on that one because we will all forget that. So keep that
Scott.
discussion going.
Is it common for city councilors to attend and participate in that?
I think attendance might be interesting for you guys since it's more conveniently located. You don't have to attend the whole thing, but if there's a session or two you want to jump into, there might be an opportunity to sit on a panel to discuss our planning efforts, explain our city center or our tiered water rates or any other efforts that we as a city are proud of and want to show off and say, here's some good practice for the rest of the state to model. So if you want to be in the limelight, there's certainly opportunities, but we just need to start thinking about what we might want to present for session ideas or for mobile tours, those types of things.
Okay,
A question on the city center. What is available for the public to catch a vision of and see what's been going on? And you talked about later that will change maybe in the middle of December or end of December. But just again, go over that again and let me know what is available now and when that will change.
Yeah, so right now in the general plan, we have started talking about the city center development district. And so the area is delineated in that draft plan that shows the location. It has a subsection that talks about some of the land uses and some of the goals for that area. But the more detailed site-specific planning as far as massing and architecture and layout of streets and pathways, that will be coming soon once we put that third version out to the public, later in December. So the V2 draft is on the general plan website. That's available, has been, and anybody can hop in there at any time if they want to see where it's located. The general intent and the vision for the area, that is all out to the public as we speak, but more detail is coming in the next couple of weeks.
You think V3 then of the general plan will coincide with some more information on the city center plan?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
okay, Marie? Okay, Scott? Alan?
Only just the upcoming events. So you can see the schedule right here of events coming up. But again, thanks to everyone who helped with the Christmas party. Shop with a Cop was a huge success. Santa Story Time, that is on the 12th. So that's tomorrow night at the library. Great event. And then Silent Santa is for persons with disabilities. They can sign up through the rec department, come to the HSC to visit Santa on the 14th. And then the holiday lighting contest results will be that day. New Year's at noon. There's a sports sampler at that same time. The Connect Transit Grand Opening, that's another thing to put on your schedule, is on January 13th. That's the bus service formerly known as CVTD. Their headquarters are in North Logan on 4th West and
3021 North?
3021 North is what I was gonna say. Anywho, sorry, I put that already in
It's,
there.
It's literally,
you
it's
put
the
it on
address
there.
is there.
I know.
So,
I was gonna guess
The mayor
where
just
it
didn't,
was.
come up with that on her own.
Anyway, and then the Jane Austen Ball, that will come up in January 22nd or February 22nd. And my understanding is they've had several people sign up for that already, which is fantastic. To have that early registration, it's become kind of a classic event for the library and a good fundraising tool. So
Yeah.
those are events coming up.
If I can, just an update on the local option sales tax. Last night that was passed in the county council. There's we still have a lot of open-ended questions on that the county will have to answer. They did set an extra meeting for next Tuesday. But just so you guys know, that happened and it was despite the protest of the mayors. So we'll wait to see how that plays out, but I'm really hoping that the county council actually does, start that dialogue. There's not really precedent for it in the recent history of the county council, so that's going to be an uphill battle. Any other updates from the council? Okay, then I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, motion by Emily,
Second.
second by Kenny. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's all. That's amazing.